This is Mehesh Shami from No Man, and you're listening to The New Scene.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to The New Scene. I am your host, Keith, and we're back with another brand new episode. And on the show this week, we have one of my most anticipated guests of all time. We have Sean Ingram of Coalesce. That's right, it finally happened after years of phone calls with agents and lunches and power dinners and high-stakes knockdown, drag-out battles in boardrooms on Wall Street. We finally got it done. Coalesce is reuniting. We all saw the announcement. They've been dormant for a long time, but they are back. And Sean gives us the scoop on how the band got back together, their upcoming shows, their upcoming plans. A new band Sean is working on. We go deep. It gets very personal. And I'm just beyond thrilled for everybody to hear this conversation. So let's get into it. But before we do that, I need your help. We are on the push to 300 Apple Podcast and Spotify reviews. We're close to 300 on Spotify, but we have a long, long way to go on Apple Podcasts. We need like 80 or something. I don't know what it is about Apple Podcasts, but it seems to be very hard to get reviews there. So if you have an iPhone, open up your podcast app, search The New Scene, click it, scroll down, and hit that 5-star button. Subscribe too if you're not already. And thank you everyone who has been submitting reviews. You're the best. Also, a reminder, The New Scene has shirts available for sale at our store at Death Wish Inc. And you can follow us on Instagram at New Scene Pod. Throw me a follow on Instagram if you're not. I'm trying to get over 10,000 followers by, sometime next year. And it's all organic growth here, baby. No bots, no buying followers, none of that nonsense. Just me and you. Also, don't forget to support Iodine Recordings. The Hassan Aisaba Untitled Discography LP just went up for pre-order. Hassan Aisaba was a short-lived but legendary emo violence band that originated in Boston in 1999. Untitled serves as the defining document of Hassan Aisaba, archiving all of the known recordings, photographs, show posters, which took years to find and put together. The record was produced by Kurt Ballou at God City, and it was remixed and remastered by Jack Shirley at Atomic Garden. The release is complete with a 12-page retrospective zine with thoughts and reflections from the band on their short history, and it's accompanied by photographs and poster art. Also, Iodine welcomes Teardrops to the label. Teardrops features members of Doom Riders and There Were Wires. The first single, In My Sleep, is available right now, so go check it out. Also, remember, the Drought self-titled EP is out there now. You can order it. You can listen to it. Love Letters debut LP. Everyone Wants Something Beautiful. It's out right now. You can listen to the entire thing right now. And the new LP from Her Head's on Fire, Strange Desires, comes out July 19th. Also, say hello to our sponsor for the month of July. Equal Vision Records. That's right, Equal Vision Records is back to sponsor The New Scene for the month of July. And look, Equal Vision is a legendary label. One of my favorite labels. Has been one of my favorite labels since I discovered this music. Everybody has been on Equal Vision Records. This Day Forward, 108, One King Down, Circa Survive, The Hope Conspiracy, Code 7, Be Well. I mean, the list is endless. Endless. And here's some updates from the label. Common Sage just dropped the first single called Eden. That's from their upcoming EP, which is called Nostos Algos. And that comes out July 24th. The new single features Jeff Rickley and Steve Padula of Thursday. So go check it out. Hail the Sun, the 10-year anniversary tour of Wake. kicks off September 5th in Sacramento, California. Check the EVR page or the Hail the Sun page for a full list of tour dates. The 25th anniversary tour of the Juliana Theory's Understand This Is a Dream kicks off August 1st in Santa Ana, California. And there's more tour dates beyond that. Check the EVR page for a full list of dates and go to the show. You know what? I'm going to listen to that record again this week because that is a classic. Kayonashi have a new EP coming out July 26th, and it's called A Second Chance at Forever, The Brilliant Lies from Casey Diamond. You can hear a single from the EP called Straycations right now. And join the EVR Street Team. Do you want to help promote upcoming releases and shows with the label? They'll be doing stuff between July 1st and September 30th, and you can sign up right now. Go to the EVR Instagram, hit the link in their bio, and fill out the form. For more updates, head to equalvision.com or check out their Instagram at equalvision. Okay, so check back in with me in segment 3. We'll do a wrap-up of the conversation with Sean. I'll talk about how much I love Coalesce. We'll check in. We'll see how everyone's doing. We'll talk about everything. But right now, we are going to speak to Sean Ingram. Enjoy. All right, we are here now with Sean Ingram. Sean, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, this is great.
Yes, Sean, it's great to have you here. I mean, Coalesce, just a legendary band to me and many folks, and many people out there very excited to have you back, myself included. And you've got some shows coming up, some new shows coming up, which I'm excited to see. And we're going to cover all of that. But first, Sean, I need to ask you, how are you doing today?
Today, I'm great. I'm working from home, and I've got no complaints. Everything's going good. Announcement days are always good days, though. You know?
Yeah, they're the best. So, do you work from home a lot?
No. So this is a new situation for me. I actually sold my business last year, and the new owner, RL, he asked me back. He convinced me to come back, and now I'm kind of driving to Kansas City and doing some things, and then I try to do one day a week kind of from home to save on fuel, and and I'm getting used to it. I know why my employees fought for it now during the pandemic. I get it.
Yeah, I went fully remote in 2019 pre-pandemic because that's just how my department roles were spread out all across the country. It's been life-changing. Life-changing. I love it.
Yeah, I think my dogs love it the most, and my wife probably loves it second most. So yeah, no, it I guess I'm just not seeing the mental benefits of it yet. I know that they're there, and I can see it, but I think that my experience with it largely is that I get 2 more hours a day done of work done that I'm not spending going to Kansas City, right? So it's like, to me, it's numbers, because that's how my brain works. So yeah, but it's interesting for sure for me.
Yeah. And plus, I get more done at home because if I have to work till 7, 8, I'll do it. There's not people in the office stopping by to talk to you and all that nonsense.
Yeah, for real. Yeah. And meetings are new for me too, because normally I like to just kind of pop in and get things done.
Yeah.
But, the company now is like, I think almost 250 employees now. So getting that information across that many people, it has to be meetings and stuff. But I'm definitely understanding meeting fatigue. So it's a big learning curve for me this year, for sure. Owning your own business and just, you being the boss and being blind to how other people do stuff, and then working, into a business, that, has to do things a certain way. It's definitely a learning curve, but I'm enjoying myself. I'm definitely in it for the love of the game. It's definitely a learning experience to learn why, like, what gets me up out of bed in the morning. Right. So that's been fun to learn, for sure.
What company did you sell? Was it the bike polo company?
So no, I actually shut down the bike polo company for a host of reasons. Like, I think it was right before Trump came into office, right before or maybe he was in office, but it was right when the tariffs were becoming an issue. And those types of products are all made in China. They just don't really make them in America, at least that I could find. As far as like ski poles or CNC machining, UHMW, which is like kind of like cutting board material, that's self-healing plastic. So the company I actually sold was Merch Table. I founded Merch Table in 1999, and I've been doing it for, I mean, gosh, it's almost 25 years now, right? And so, or I guess it is 25 years. And so that was what, I mean, that's really what, that's why I'm talking to, why I'm doing things to even talk about, right? So, um, just selling that company and then just exiting and just restarting life, and just trying to find, what's valuable to me in life. And so, yeah, so it wasn't that the company wasn't valuable. It's just that the anybody listening to this who owns a business, understands that the pressure is immense, and it's just incredible. And so all of the other things that were going on in, my life, and that it's just like I need to make a change. So doing it for 25 years, I was like, hey, you know what? It makes sense to do this. And the company that bought us, was a fierce competitor of ours, just 40 minutes away. So it made sense that, we were essentially the exact same company, just we were just in different bands and different scenes, and, but we came up the same, just like every merch company out there is owned by a band guy, right? From Merch Direct to, so on and so forth. So, um, yeah, so we knew that they were going to keep the company intact, and we knew that our employees could grow with them. And so, Jim David, my partner, he plays bass on the Anniversary. He and I decided that this is probably the time to do it as we're approaching 50. And then just really just kind of figure out. I mean, maybe it's a midlife crisis. I don't know. I guess it could be described as that, but it didn't feel like it was out of panic. It felt like it was the right time. It was time to do this and then kind of go. And so, I think that folks that I worked with we've got 15-year employees. I mean, people have been there for quite a while. And so when they heard I was coming back, they're like, "Why?" It wasn't really for money. It was, it's just the guy who bought the company is doing really interesting things with it. And the thing that makes Merch Table different than other merch companies is that we developed our own software. And so, we have Shopify, and we're integrated with Shopify, but we're not Shopify. Shopify doesn't run a company. Our system, our Merch Table system, runs a company. It does all the things that Shopify doesn't do, where you got to pay thousands and thousands of dollars for developers or app fees to do. And so when RL, the owner of Scene Merch, who's now the owner of everything, when he explained to me what he wanted to do with the software, it's just exciting to me. And so I was like, I definitely want to be a part of that. And so that's the number of reason. And, and also I'm not HR, and I'm not the tax accountant anymore. And I'm not the bookkeeper and all those things. I just come in and I just do rad shit and I go home. And so like that to me is, I mean, it's just I mean, not to say I didn't like my job, but it's like when you own something, you eat shit all the time and you're the last person to get paid. So like just
Yeah.
knowing I'm getting paid and I'm doing rad shit, and RL can shoulder the stress that comes with that. It's like the best of both worlds for me. I mean, it's really cool, honestly.
Yeah.
I've never been so excited to work before. So, so I'm there, and until he tells me I'm not, and then, and then I just, plan to really focus on, music.
Was there an offer out from the other company, or did you just show up at their door like, "Hey, I've got an offer for you"?
So funny thing, our longtime lawyer, I learned, was his lawyer accidentally, because our lawyer called me Scene Merch one time, and it pissed me off, and I didn't know if I was like, why does he think that? And then he accidentally sent a message to me because he got us confused because we're the same person. And so, I was like, oh, we're the same lawyer. So when me and Jim were thinking about this move, um, I brought it up to our lawyer. I said, "Hey, I know you work for a competitor. Do you think this is a good marriage?" And our lawyer actually set up a lunch meeting, and Mike, or RL, and his brother Micah, they came out, and we just hit it off, and it was really cool. And the thing that's funny about RL, he was in the band called Flee the Scene. So he was part of that whole era of music that saw like major label money and music videos and all that stuff. And that was never a part of our world. So it's really interesting to go back and see all the stuff that he did. But during when he came through on that whole time, it just was the same though. You know what I mean? It was the same application, but he did an interview with KPR, Kansas Public Radio, and he just did his life story. Hey, I was in a band. I was in a hardcore band, and then I started merch, and then I did merch for my friends, and yada yada yada. Right? It's just the same story that a lot of us have, and a lot of these merch companies have. And I was getting messages from friends all the time. They're like, "Hey, this is such a great story on KPR. It's so cool." And I was like so confused. And then I finally found the thing online, and I was so pissed because I was like, "God damn it, he's got the story." You know what I mean? And it's like, and it wasn't that he got the story, but it was just to learn how ununique I am in my journey and my story, that that like friends and family, like they're hearing his name is not Sean, but they in their brain it's connecting that it's like no, this is Sean. So me and RL have a real good laugh about that because it's to me it was just hilarious, how similar those stories are. So but yeah, our lawyer made it all happen, and it just happened really quick.
Here's a question. Could you retire right now if you wanted to, minus the job?
I'm close to it.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, this is the best. Working that job, founding that company since 1999, that's a long time. We're talking like, 012 just came out on Relapse Records, and the band was broken up. That's a lifetime ago. So all of that time invested, and now being able to just take a step back and work this job, let somebody else handle the business ownership stress of it. That's a great thing.
Yeah, it really truly is. And I would have never thought that, because I've always owned things. I've always been an entrepreneur, and not being that way is it's different for me, but like it's also, I think, probably better.
This recent change with your career, is that partially what spawned Coalesce coming back?
So no. Just drives Coalesce.
Yes.
I say this often, that Coalesce is Jess's band, right? It doesn't function without him. And so really, if Jess says he wants to do the band, me and Nate are always ready to do the band. We love the band and we love doing it. And so that really is what drives it. And so every year we get together, or every other year, and we have dinner, and we just hang out, and Ed Rose comes out, and our buddy Dan Askew from Second Nature Records, and our good buddy, JJ, who, played drums and like my straight edge band back in the day. I mean, we're all still good pals. And so we just get together, and every year Nate asks, he's like, "Hey, Furnace Fest wants to do a show," or who, so-and-so wants to do something. And every year Jess goes, "That's cool." And then that's it. You know what I mean? It's like, he's not interested. I don't really know what changed this year, but Jess just kind of looked at Nate this year, and he goes, "So are we playing or what?" And Nate's like, "Well, yeah, let's do it." And so, we stopped playing. Our last show was in, I think, 2010 or 2011. We played our last show with Converge at, they were on tour, and we opened up for them at Liberty Hall or Granada or something, right? And that was when our drummer at the time, Junior, said, "Hey, I don't really want to do this anymore. I'm going to start life. I'm going to do all these other things." And so we didn't really have a drummer. So maybe that contributed to that decade, because it's like, you know what I mean? It's like just as, he has a career as a professor at a university, and he's busy. He's got kids, like, life happens. And so I think possibly, getting a new drummer, because that's always been hard for us. We've been through a lot of drummers. And so but Jeff has always been on our radar. He's always been a pal of the band and definitely close with Nate. And so Nate's like, no, dude, we have to do it with Jeff. And so I think that got him excited too, because, he's a good hang. He's an incredible drummer. You know what I mean? It's just fortuitous for us. So we really it's just happened. You know what I mean? And it really kind of happened at the best time, because it took me a good solid year to get back in shape vocally to do this. And I know that sounds weird to some people, because it definitely sounded weird to me, because I couldn't believe that I didn't know how to scream anymore. Because like a lot of people act like screaming at a band is not hard, right? Or it's just nonsense or whatever. It's like to get.
It's incredibly hard.
Yeah, it's super hard, It's and you can really tell the difference when you hear someone who's terrible at it versus somebody who knows what they're doing, right? And so, I was getting in shape for a totally different musical project for totally different reasons, and it took a good year. Of solid hard work, 3 days a week for a solid year to get back what I lost, and it's amazing to learn how it's amazing to learn what you could do intuitively in your 20s, that you just completely forget mentally in your 40s going into your 50s. And so just learning, and I went through every single vocal trainer online. I did a couple, consultations. I sunk a lot of time and money into this thing to finally understand it. And then now I'm at a spot to where I feel like I'm probably actually stronger than I was when I was, doing guest spots like on the Ocean and these other really rad bands, when I could just jump in the studio and go. So that to me was like super cool timing, because they're like, well, can you do it? And I was like, well, good fucking news, guys. I've been doing this for the last year. It's like I had no intention of doing Coalesce, but like I'm ready. So that worked out really good, and the way that we're approaching our gear is so different, because Coalesce has always been so incredibly punk rock and cheap and bootstrapped, you know what I mean? And now that we understand what we want to see in bands we love, it's like we're more cautious about making sure we're able to deliver that in this band for people who have those same, sentiments towards us. And to learn that people really care about our band is really bizarre, because I've played a million empty shows, right? So so when people are having that kind of like an outpouring of, showing love for the band, and that they want to come out and they want to support it and stuff, it's like, we're really putting a lot of work into making sure that it delivers what what they like. The emotions that they have for this band on the CD need to come through in a live show too. It can't just be a train wreck and then vomiting, right? It has to be a real performance. So we've traditionally been very, very visceral, and it's been a movement and all that. And it's still that way for us when we're doing live, but it's like the amount of things that we're putting into play to make it a more cohesive experience, I think people will be happy with it. It's been really cool, especially when like all of our samples, like the kids playing and all the, and the interludes and all that stuff, on the set that we have put together. It's an hour-long set. It covers all of our releases and has all the interludes. It has spots to tune. So, it's just put together, and to me, I feel like seeing like a band like Caven, like a real pro band do it. It's just like, it embarrasses us or me, embarrasses me, like how how I approach things in the past, you know what I mean? So like seeing a real pro band do it right, you know what I mean? And that's our inside joke. And we put it on a shirt, right? The doing it wrong 30 years strong. Cause it's like, we've always just kind of just, I don't know. We put thought into things, obviously, but it's like, I don't know. You know what I mean? Try to book ourselves when we shouldn't. Do all these other things. So like this time we're just doing all the things that we've learned through our professional career and applying it to Coalesce, so that we can do the things we know we're good at, and then we're not dealing with the things that break us up or the things we're bad at.
Well, that's exciting. This is very exciting for me. This is probably my most anticipated reunion, so it sounds awesome, all the thought that's going into it and the changes and stuff. I have questions though. What exactly did you do to get your voice back in gear? Like, was it just online tutorial trainers? Did you have to do any physical running? Like, what did you do?
Yeah, so a lot, all of it. So the first thing I did was just really just understand the mechanics of the vocal cords and the false chords. Because to me, I didn't know if I was a fry scream or a false chord. I don't know what it was. Because to me, um, I, I push air. I mean, it's strenuous. It's not a static sound that I use an amplifier to distort and make louder. It's an actual, like I mentioned earlier, it's like something visceral. So that was a little difficult for me to find help online for, because a lot of people, the way that they teach is that you do kind of like a fry scream and then you let the amplifiers do the work. And so, I met with this one teacher. He's great, and he put a really or interesting question to me. He said, he's like, "For real, Sean, when is the last time you've had to be louder than the amp?" And I'm like, "Well, like a million house shows, CBGBs, ABC No Rio. It's like I could actually count 12 shows to where it's like you actually did have to do that." And so it was a major adjustment of my thinking, I guess, kind of as like an old head, you know what I mean? And just going into it with earplugs and a microphone and brute force. And so that doesn't work anymore for what we're doing, and it's why I've been going deaf. It's why I've been doing all these different things, that aren't good. And so to me, really just like that was the first step. And then I'm not accountable to myself as far as training goes. And I started seeing a personal trainer. It's actually Dustin Kinsey from the Get Up Kids is my personal trainer. So we meet, and then he's helping me, like, for the past year and a half to get in shape. And keep in mind, I was doing this for totally different reasons, but like it just Coalesce is going to benefit from it. You know what I mean? They don't have to wait for me. That's why we're able to just hit the ground running. So really it was all of those things. And then really just experimenting with my voice and finding a way to rehearse without the band. So, I created a setup, in my basement with, to where I can basically replace my band with a phone. And I can have two levels and it goes back into my in-ears. And so to me, that's like one of the most important things I've done so that I can do that. And then also, I see a personal trainer, Alyssa, from DC. She works with Kowloon Wall City and Great Falls and Museum of Light, and she's an opera singer, and she does training similar to what most like heavy metal people would associate with what Melissa Cross out of New York City. And so I work with her, and yeah, I mean, it's an incredible amount of time and effort that I do, and the amount of tech that I've invested is just kind of nuts. To think of something that I used to just blather out as a kid, but but I tell you what, the difference between a good show and a bad show is not being hoarse at the end. And so I always cite BBC as like the peak of my vocal approach. When we did the BBC live show, it was just comfortable, and it just worked easy, and I was able to control it. And so just getting back to that area has been kind of like my North Star. So I was able to get back to it, but it was all hard work, and it's just practice, 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 practice. And I can't tell you how many times I wanted to quit too, and I've in the studio with Josh, with other projects, and I was just like, I can't do it. It's not working, it'll never happen again. And he was helpful in saying, hey, get out of your own head. It's going to work. It's just practice. It's a muscle, just like everything else. And he's right. Just like everyone else is right about that. So that's really been the journey on that.
That's really inspiring to hear, especially because I'm going through the same exact thing right now. And it's like, yeah, you have a good night and you get through the set and you're like, I'm awesome. This is awesome. Everything's going to be fine. And then you have a bad night and blow your voice out and you're like, I suck. This is going to suck. It's not going to work. So, I guess the key is to just stick with it. Did you before when you started the training, right? Did you just know you had to train to get back to where you were, or did you try to scream and you were just like, "Ugh, I'm going to need some work"? Like, what happened?
Well, it was to me like getting back into it was it was dismal. I mean, it's like when I came back into it, I was like, holy shit. It was just like it was like came out like right? It was just there's no wetness, there was no tearing sound, there was the tone, there's none of that stuff that I know about myself, and can do. And so it was just tight and all that stuff. So um yeah, it just it was just awful. So um I I know this about myself. If if I'm left to my own devices and I'm not held accountable by somebody else, I'll just sit on my ass and watch TV and go to bed because I'm tired, right? So uh, to me, it's just like I just had to create all these ways to stay accountable. You know what I mean? And just pray that like there would be something at the end of it that would be worth it, or I would see some kind of glimpse that what I was doing was working. And so it wasn't until me and Josh, got to Norway and were recording this other project, and the vocals just worked in the middle of the night, and the promise Josh and made to me was like, hey, we're only going to do 2 hours of vocals. We're only going to do 2 songs at a time. So, don't worry about the anxiety and this and that. And I got really ill. I while I was out there, and so we lost time. And so we just started, and I was like, you know what, fuck it, let's keep going. And we did, and we just smashed through like I think almost 6 songs. So from beginning to end. So like to me, and it was exactly how I wanted to hear. It wasn't sanitized. It had all the squeaks and squiggles and squirks and all the stuff that my voice does, that makes it sound unique. And so, um, yeah, so that was the moment that I was like, you know what, it paid off. And so that's what got me excited about that. But I got to say again, this show we saw at Bottleneck, knowing that I was going to do this, I didn't even know if I knew I needed to do something with my life, and I wanted to do something, right? But I just didn't know if I'd like it again because, like I said, I've had a million bad shows. It's like, do I want to go do this again? What am I doing? But we went to the Bottleneck on a whim. Me and Dan Askew were skating this vert ramp that we got erected out here, and they were coming through town, and they're like, "Hey, come on out!" And so we did, and it was hot. It was like July or August, if my memory serves. And they had the swamp coolers going on, and it was packed. It was about a 500 cap room, and they came into and they sounded great. And I've seen Cave In a million times, and they're always great. But something about like when they went into Heavy Pendulum, I hadn't heard the record yet, really. And they came into the title track, and then they went into the cover of Cave In, and it fucking blew me away. And I was like, okay, this I want back. I want back in. And so really, even though I was kind of, I was working on stuff, and, it really wasn't until I saw that I was just like, I want back in. I'm inspired. I want to do it. So it was kind of like all of those things. But but like to get back to your original question, I know I'm meandering here a little bit, but like to get back to your original question, it's like I knew I needed help, and I knew I needed accountability.
You mentioned that Coalesce would just kind of fly by the seat of their pants and be cheap in terms of gear, or I'm paraphrasing there, but what changes is the band making now with these new shows coming up in terms of gear or setup or stuff like that?
Well, Jess is really fortunate enough that Dunable is building him a custom guitar to his needs, which what does that even look like? So that's incredibly exciting. Jess has gone nuts with making his sound, like really perfecting the sound that he wants, and being able to sustain that on the road night after night with the tech that he buys, which is, we've always had pedals, we've always had amps and heads, etc. But like, I mean, Jess is all in, Jess has really put a lot of work into that. And then the same goes with the vocals, and then Nate directing, with like how our sets are flowing together and how we're setting the space. Also bring our own sound guy with us, We've kind of done that with buddies in the past, but we have our own set sound person that knows exactly what we're going to do. So, it's not unusual for Coalesce to be like, fuck it, what are we playing tonight? 5 minutes before we get on stage. So that's real common for us, and Nate would just show up with something scribbled on some paper. But now it's just completely put together like, hey, these songs make sense flowing into this record era makes sense going to this. You Can't Kill Us All makes sense here. You know what I mean? Because we know the reaction to this song versus the reaction to this other song. And so really just like the entire process of how we're putting it together, I think it's intentional.
That sounds really exciting. Yeah. Back in the day, your voice did change early on. I'm thinking like 002 era, the first Earache EP, you had kind of a raspier yelling style,
Mm-hmm.
and then it eventually evolved into the Coalesce vocals we know now. How did that happen? Did that happen naturally, or did you try different things and push something different? How did that happen?
So that really just kind of happened in practice to where I was like, oh, it was really just under like discovering my diaphragm, discovering how to carry out a scream for a long time by creating pressure, or resistance and pressure. And something that's interesting is that there's so much resource material right now to understand how to scream, and that didn't exist back then. I mean, the internet rarely existed back then. I didn't even have AOL back then, so it really was just trial and error and just figuring out what it feels like. And for me, it was just the feel of it. And so I liked it when it kind of happened because there was a consistency to it, and it really got strong at 012. And so like when that happened, I was like, okay, this is the vocal style, and I was really stoked that like it did have a unique sound to it. You know what I mean? Because if it's just a yelling or a fry scream, it's like, they're not always unique to where you can kind of tell who's doing it, right? So, whatever I'm doing, it created something that just you can kind of tell when you hear it. It's like, oh, that's Sean. So, I was stoked that kind of came about through that, but like, I still don't totally understand how it works. But I know how it feels. And that's largely how it came about. Definitely not intentional. I never came in and said, hey, I need to sound different. It was really just, the amount of shows we're playing and the amount of rehearsals we're doing and that kind of screaming, it just evolved into that. And my body just kind of was clicked.
Right. When you're figuring it out, you figure out what works, what doesn't, and you just end up landing somewhere.
Yeah. And that's where I landed. And then the more we did it, the more I was able to carry it out. I feel like one of the better things I've done was I mentioned it earlier, but I did this song for the ocean. I believe it's called Queen of the Food Chain. And that was one to where I could just go in and just go forever. Like there was no prep time, and everything was able to, to sound exactly what I want. And I could twist it and tweak it how I wanted it live, and I could do it in one take. And so that was also kind of around that time, of 012. So like, man, I tell you what, when you're strong and you're rehearsed, it's like, I mean, you really can do anything, So that's really just been kind of like, my path here.
When you were young, you got very inspired by Earth Crisis, which I've read about at around 17 years old, right?
Yeah.
And I read an interesting fact. Christmas Day, you opened presents with your family. Right when you were done opening gifts, you were like, all right, peace out. Moving to Syracuse. That's true?
That's absolutely true. So,
what was your family's reaction? Were they like, wait, what?
My family, I got a lot of leeway. That's the amount of shit I put my family through is, as I look back on it, is pretty amazing. So I think that was probably one of the least surprising things I did to them. So like, my mom knew I wanted to leave, my mom knew I wanted to go out and see the world, all these different things. And, it was just, back then you would write letters to zines, right? So I would write the folks from Holocaust straight edge zine, I think is what it was called. And I just said, hey, do you guys need a roommate? I want to get out of Kansas. I want to get out of Missouri is where it was at the time. And they're like, yeah, we got a room coming out. It's this much. And that's how it worked. And I just showed up in my little 2-door car and all my stuff in the back. And that's it. I was in the hardcore scene. So my thing with Syracuse and Earth Crisis was that, to me, it's like it went from Judge to Earth Crisis. And that's, I've been talking to several people about that this week. So Johannes from Cult of Luna and I've been chatting a lot about like what hardcore was before Earth Crisis and what it was after. It's like it was Judge and then it was Earth Crisis. And it was a huge jump for us and me in particular. And for me, I think it was to me first, I think it was the voice and then it was just the sound and the energy. And I was full blown into straight edge and veganism and all that stuff at the time. And so I just wanted to be a part of it. Right. It was like the Grateful Dead. So I just wanted to travel to be a part of it. And so I did, and I just couldn't wait. And I graduated, pretty early, pretty young. And so, yeah, that Christmas I just dipped out and I drove and I was there on the 26th. And so, and then went and followed Earth Crisis on tour, with everybody who lived in the house. It was like Earth Crisis and then like this big van of all of us, vegan straight edge kids, following around again, like the Dead. And that's how I met Snapcase and met all these other people, it was on that trip. And so, that's definitely, that's definitely one of my, decisions I made on a whim there.
Yeah, I connected with your trajectory with hardcore because when I discovered this music, the first CD, I'm not too up on my historical hardcore. I am more now because of this show, but the first CDs I got were like Converge, Botch, Coalesce, Dillinger Escape Plan. And I usually didn't go too far back beyond that. I have more nowadays, but so that's my starting point. And then I moved forward from there. So I kind of connected with you on that sense, just starting with Earth Crisis. So you went out to Syracuse, you're interested in the straight edge scene. You want to be there. You want to be part of it, but you didn't stay there long, right? At the time, did you become disillusioned with that scene at all?
No, it wasn't really a disillusion with the scene. I left pretty quick there because I think I was 17 and like most 17-year-olds, I was an idiot and I just had no understanding of money, how to support myself. I had a job and I did all those things out there, but I was also like, collecting records when I had no money to collect records, and so, and like socially, I'm sure I was very difficult to get along with. It's, socially getting along with people socially has been a difficult journey for me for whatever reason. So, it wasn't really the straight edge scene I had a problem with. I think that I just really had a problem with the fact that, especially back then when I was a young kid, I would get into something and then I'm that thing. And ultimately, really what I wanted, and I didn't know how to communicate it or understand it myself is that I just wanted to be me. And so I didn't leave straight edge or veganism to do drugs or any of those things. I just did it to not be affiliated with anything. And so, I don't know if that makes sense, but like, I just, I wasn't, as they say, shopping for a crew anymore. It's like, I just wanted to be me. And so, to me that, and I got myself in trouble for sure, cause as I'm wrestling with those thoughts and stuff, we wrote Harvest of Maturity and, it was largely taken as like the anti, straight edge theme or whatever at the time, or Sean Ingram was a anti-straight edge. It really wasn't, at all.
Stacy, when I had him on the show, he said that's how it was perceived, like anti-scene. And at some show, some guys showed up with baseball bats and were like, hey, so-and-so sends his regards. But then 108 had to step in and I think Strife, and, they backed off.
I have.
Were you encountering stuff like that because of that song?
I don't remember that song. I don't remember that event at all. But straight edge kids were definitely angry, definitely
Yeah.
pissed. And I would get messages from people I knew in Syracuse and hear that they were upset and disappointed with me. It's so on and et cetera. So, but yeah, look, I say this often, but it's just like the shit that my kids say at 17 and 18, like I don't take it seriously at all. They deserve all the grace in the world. And so like to me, at that time with the straight edge scene, if you're gonna hold a 16, 17, 18-year-old kid accountable who's really looking for unity and belonging and inclusion, right? And they stumble across this thing, and then they realize that that's the straight edge thing isn't for them, or when the violence entered it, they don't want to be a part of it, and it just punish them for it. It just seems ridiculous. You know what I mean? Because it's like I just hear, I you know I mean, it's just they're babies. I mean, at 18, I thought I was so grown up, but approaching 50, it's like my kid some of my kids have done some crazy ass shit at 18, you know what I mean? And I completely blocked it out of my mind, you know what I mean? But imagine if there was, it's like someone's like, we're going to kick their ass because they drink a beer or whatever, that whole thing that kind of evolved out of there. Yeah, it's just bizarre to me. So, yeah, I don't, to me, it's like, it wasn't about that, you know what I mean? But then when you get into the cruise and the death threats and all this other stuff that came later, you know what I mean? It's like I definitely kicked against it, no doubt.
Yeah.
Definitely was just like fuck you guys, you know what I mean? But yeah, in the beginning that's not what it was, you know what I mean? But also to me it's like I've always approached like songwriting, and lyric writing is like I have this really cool opportunity to to be honest and share something, and hopefully somebody will understand it, right? So like sometimes I hear bands, they're like, hey, this is a song about this funny thing, or I rewrote a story with this song. But to me it's like I always approach lyrics very much like, hey, this is me, you know what I mean? And I think largely that's why I would take such offense to um, like negative reviews or pushback and things like that. Because I think largely what was happening is that I was equating, if you don't like my band, you don't like me, because I was putting all of me into the band, right? And so that was like a hard lesson to learn too. So the straight edge thing and that all came out of that same bit, and it's, I definitely could have done a better job, but I don't regret how it happened. I mean, it's been an incredible journey, an incredible learning experience. And even as my kids deal with substances or being straight edge and all of these things, it's like, I actually have some sort of perspective and some reference, that I can actually help guide them through it.
Yeah, I always really connected with your lyrics because you would say what was on your mind and you would speak out sometimes about things going on. I can't remember specific songs, but there was a song on 012 that kind of talked about I don't know, some things going on in the scene, and I'd never seen anyone write about it like that. And I even remember one time like just copying the lyrics and pasting them in my AOL profile. And some random guy messaged me and he's like, "What is that? It's so great." And I was like,
Oh,
"It's
weird.
Coalesce."
Oh,
So
cool.
it's like, yeah, I would be able to see what song it was if I went and looked it up. But you would talk about things like no one else would, and I liked that because I personally felt criticisms in the scene because a lot of people at the top, so to speak, would be in crews that would like get venues shut down and beat people up. And I
Yeah.
was like, really? Like, this is what we're doing? Or I've even been part of like organizations that are supposed to help people. And again, the people at the top are there for the wrong reasons and are doing things that actually hurt people. So it's like organizations of people are run by people. So sadly, sometimes these things happen.
Yeah, and we used to run to that all the time. Like we used to play food not bomb shows all the time, so that the the crust punks who ran it could feed themselves. They're running shows to fix fix up their refrigerator, and so it's like, yeah, you get that human element, and that's what it is. So look, I think largely for me, it's like I didn't have the tools to understand it. So I think really what you get 3 or 4 records of me trying to process it as someone who doesn't know how to process it, and that's really what I would equate those records to. And to me, it's like, I don't, as I criticize myself, to me, it's Ox is the first modern record for me that I go back to, that I'm like, hey, this is me. And I know that everybody says their last record is their favorite and their best record, but for us, it's like, we love Ox. It's like, that was the record we always wanted to write, and it came out the way we always wanted it to come out. And so, that's just kind of where I'm at. So, and even now, as I do these songs, I'm reading them, I'm just like, fuck, can I change some of these lyrics? You know what I mean? It's just like, what is this weird conservative slant on some of these songs? It's not me. Like, what is this? And so, I just have to keep reminding myself, it's like, an 18-year-old wrote this. My son wrote this, it's like, of course it's, you know what I mean? Not how you would express or think now. So,
Right.
I think that is, I don't think that's a problem a lot of bands have, because, well, I don't know. I mean, I guess maybe so. I mean, Cave-In and Converge have been around. Certainly Integrity has, but I just feel like that's probably a thing that, like, the old guard probably has to deal with when they have these older songs, I'm
Yeah.
certainly
Yeah.
Strife does, right?
Right.
What an interesting band that was. I don't think of Strife as anything but a straight edge band. So
Right.
when I learned that they weren't a straight edge band, I was so confused. I was like, but that's like, they were straight edge to me. Like, that was one of the coolest straight edge bands ever. And so, so I'm sure they have that issue too, right? Because they probably have old straight edge songs, and or whatever. But yeah, I think that just goes with just being an age, But if we all were 18-year-olds at 48, I can't imagine we'd be very interesting people, right? So
Right.
I'm expecting that we have to change,
I can relate to that. Like, I used to get really mad at political bands,
Mhm.
and now that you're saying, like, you were kind of yelling about things you didn't understand. There was so much I didn't understand. So if a band had a political slant, I would be like, no, that's dumb, because it was like a half not understanding things and half like, I don't want to be told what to do or what to think. So I would lash out against it.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Now I can just approach things a lot more intelligently.
Yeah, and don't underestimate the power of the reaction of, like, don't tell me what to do, right? It's like, to me, I feel like most things in my life are reaction to, like that. So it's like, and that's important, right? Because you see it, and in business and in life and in love, I feel like it's always easier to say what you don't like and what you don't want to be, and it's harder to say what you do like and what you do want to be, right? So, like,
Right.
I think that obviously that carries on in music as well.
Reading about the band in the older days, I'm talking Functioning and Nothing New and Give Them Rope. I've read interviews where you say, you were more of an entrepreneur, clearly, because, you've run these companies in later life, but you approached it more as an entrepreneur, right? Like, you were leading it. You wanted to play as much as possible. You wanted to be out there as much as possible. We were always thinking about the next move, right?
I wasn't. I was, yes, until 2005. So, you're right. Yeah, and that is how I did it. And so, I think that caused a lot of internal strife with the band, because, these guys wanted to just play, and they wanted to have fun, and they wanted to see the world, and they just wanted to take things as they came. And it's not how my brain works, and it took me a really long time and 5 breakups to realize that that's not how the band works either. And so, I would say a good 90% portion of our problems of the band was me pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing, in those early days. And so, it wasn't until we broke up in after 0-2, and I thought the band was never going to see the light of day again. It was after I put together this tour in 0-2 with Stacy and James and not Chess.
Right.
And then it wasn't until 0-5 that I had a long time to think about it, and I think 0-2, I think the 0-2 tour was a real wake up call for me to like really process like who this band is, who these people are, who I am, and what our relationship is together, so that when 0-5 came, I was just like, cool, like I'm along for the ride. What do you guys want to do? It's like I don't have any opinions. And so until we decide together. So it wasn't like I came in with like, I want to do this record, I got to get them on board. It was like, hey, do you want to do this? If the answer is no, then I don't think about it again, and we just move on. So that is when my relationship with the band really changed, and it changed for the better. And so um, and even during the whole Ox period, I mean, from that 0-5 to Ox, that was our longest run as a band actually with Junior. And so, and that was, we did a lot of releases, and we did the most tours during that time too. We were able to do Europe and all this other stuff. And so, um, I just feel like that I had to start my own business and just be successful on my own, doing my own thing. And so I did that. And, Nate came by one time in the early days, and he sent me this really nice message. He says, "Hey man, I really enjoyed seeing all of your workers just buzzing around, and, and seeing the things that you needed to do get done, and you did it. And it's impressive. And, and I want you to know that." And so I've always remembered that message he sent me, because I was like, okay. It's like I just am who I am, and they are who they are, and I can't change without a lot of forcing it, you know what I mean? And same with them. So like we just had to find that comfortable place. So that's how it ended up happening, and how we've been able to largely do that, and by extension not feel this intense competitiveness that we did towards our peers and new bands back in the day, right? So I think that was a thing too, especially during like through like the Converge and Coalesce and Dillinger and Botch and all the bands that kind of sounded, or well, not sound the same, but I don't think any of us sound the same, but like we're kind of in this.
It was a scene
It
though.
was, yeah, it was kind of like a thing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And um, I think that largely fans, and I still see this today. I think it's just how reporting works, or how marketing like stories works, is that they just try to pit them to get against each other. Like for instance, who's the best? Who does mathcore the best, or whoever, whatever the thing is. And it's just so insane to think about. It's like, does everybody buy just one record? You know what I mean? It's like, to me, it's like that. It's like, dude, these kids own Converge Records, Coalesce Records, Dillinger Records, Botch Records, Norma Jean Records, Chariot Records, Handshake Murders Records. They own all these bands that are similar because they like the sound, and they like this feel. And so, yeah, so like even that went away, and we were able to just chill out and then just relax, And so now there's nothing I appreciate more than getting to pick the openers. And like we just announced today this New York show and Philly show, and Jeff at Ground Control, who's our booking agent, was just like, here's the bands that can do it. Who do you like? And that's when I was just like, holy shit, I want No Man. I want Rid of Me. I want I Flies. You know what I mean? It's like, I want all of these amazing bands because I want to be in the pit and enjoy them. And so I don't know if that necessarily would have been true back in the day. You know what I mean? Because we were just different, as far as like how we're doing things. Whereas like, I think now understanding that friendships with these bands are rare, and they're, it's a privilege to know such amazing people, you know what I mean, and have access to them, and then them have access to you. So like, I think that's largely how we've been kind of doing it, and then that's what's been getting us excited. And I've been chatting with the singer of No Man, and she's just like, thank you so much. And I was like, actually, no, thank you. Like, I'm going to be up front during your set. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm like, this is like, we know what it's like to have this and not have it. You know what I mean? And then to have it again. And so to have it again is incredibly special. And we're just not going to squander it.
That's awesome. Yeah, Meh has been on the show. She's great, and sadly, I missed them last time they were here. But I'll be at that New York show. I'll tell you that much.
Well, nice. Yeah. Well, then
Yeah.
we're going to hang.
Absolutely. That competitiveness that you mentioned back in the day, did that ever manifest? Like, did you get pitted against people or get caught up in it?
I definitely got caught up in it. I think that Dillinger got caught up in it. I think Converge got caught up in it. I think if everybody's being honest with themselves, in some way, and that could be, that could have manifested itself in really great ways too, like really incredible fucking songs. Hey, I like what Coalesce did here, but it would be better if it was this, you know what I mean? And then that sparks some new thing. But I mean, I just have such a profound respect for Converge and those guys and the way that they've been able to like continue it on, and like they're like, I mean, I know I said this a million times, but it's just like I knew it could be done. I wanted it to be me, but God damn it, I'm glad it's them. It's like the a band that can of this style, that can just maintain and keep going. You know what I mean? It's like we disappear and come back every 12 years like locusts, and so like the fact that they've been here and they've been killing it, and all of the other ones too, so and God, I was watching Botcha shows, and what they're doing, what they did live in Europe and on their reunion thing, and it's just incredible. You know what I mean? And to me, I still have the perspective of people just being like, "Hey, it's not real music. It's just crash and bang. It's just screaming and caterwauling." You know what I mean? And so, you know what I mean? It's like, actually, that's not true. You know what I mean? It's like these bands inspired bands that love, you know what I mean, that everyone loves and worships today. So, yeah, it's just incredible to see, but it's also, I mean, again, like I said, we just feel lucky that we're able to not do something and then we're welcome back. You know what I mean? To do something too,
Exactly. I get mad when people write it off as, oh, I used to listen to that music,
Mhm.
or, oh, it's for kids, or back in the day, they always called it a rah rah, kill your mother, kill your father
Yeah,
music.
yeah, totally. Yeah, yeah, my mom says, "Oh, are you doing the band? It sounds like a jet engine starting up." I was like, "Yeah, mom, that's exactly the band I'm doing." And I'm going to New York, and I'm going all these other places too. So it's like, it just,
Yeah.
and the older guard just, they don't get it. My dad didn't get it until he went on tour with us, and that was such a bizarre experience because he like when he got it, he got it. Like he was in the pit. We have this picture we share often of him up front at one of our shows, surrounded by broken glasses on stage and bloody faces. And he has his mouth guard in, like his football mouth guard, and he was just in it, and to me, that was such a cool thing to see, you know what I mean? Because like, I mean, I spared him the pain of knowing half those songs were me kicking against him, right? But like when he understood the music and the energy and all this stuff, like he got so into it. There's this anecdote that I love. Our buddy MC growing up, skateboarding as a kid, he came out to one of our shows in Lawrence. I think it was the Converge one actually. And my dad was there, and he was just soaking up all the attention. And somebody spilled MC's drink, and MC, our buddy, he's like a Marine, and it's just, a real hair trigger, and he just decked this guy and knocked him out like cold right there in the thing. And I didn't see what happened. I just turned around and I see my dad, and he's holding everybody back. And then and he's getting the kids safe and all this other stuff, and I'm just like, what the fuck happened? And he's just like, I don't know, but it was awesome. It's like he was just completely like he's just in love, hook, line, and sinker, and So I mean, I just think that like the energy is contagious. I think people who play in these bands and people who like these bands and go to these shows do it. And to me, I love that story because that's proof. I mean, this is a hard man, you know what I mean, who was hard on me and, couldn't do anything right for this man. But then when he was able to see what happened, he melted and it was cool.
How long was he on tour with you?
Oh, I think he did like a 4 or 5 day stint going down south through Texas. It wasn't.
When was that?
It might have been '02. It might have been the '02 tour. So he brought my wife down, and they just kind of followed us around. And so yeah, it was it was cool.
Reading about the old days of the band, I connected with you a lot because, I wasted a lot of my youth because, I was misguided and getting into trouble and all that stuff. But when I got my act together, I got focused on creative pursuits and realized that's what I really love. That's what gives me life. So, reading about you in the old days of Coalesce, you want to run it like a CEO. You're on to the next thing. You're super impassioned, but the other guys, they want to have fun. And like you said, there were 95% of the breakups are from that difference in approach. And plus, you guys just had all these things to deal with, breakups and van breaking down. And it's like, I mean, was that just crushing for you? Because like, this is the thing you want to do the most. And it seems like you just keep hitting these roadblocks, because that's how I felt too. Like, I felt like, oh, I have the willingness. I want to do this, but I can't find the right band. I can't find the right people. People keep leaving. Like, I haven't found my place.
Yeah, I mean, until 1999, yeah, for sure. It's like to me, the 012 thing it was devastating. Getting kicked out, or I wasn't really kicked out, but like, Jim Red wanting to replace me was devastating before we got James Deweese. And I mean, all these things were so devastating, but like, I don't know. I don't know if that's just like a false memory, you know what I mean? Because I was just so young. Um, to me, I think that starting after 99, when it went away, it was just like, oh, it'll be back. I did think Ox was the end, because just we're reaching older age. But like, I don't, I was looking at the Jesus Lizard release yesterday that they announced, and I was looking at David Yao, and I was just pulled him up, and then like Google pulls up, and it's like David Yao 62, the guitarist 63, King Buzzo 62, and I was like, oh, you know what? Fuck it, 60 is not even too young. It's like these guys are still gods in my eyes. You know what I mean? And so, so I think that's even changed my perspective. I don't see Nate Newton or Steve, slowing down. Why does anyone else? You know what I mean? I feel like if you still got gas in the tank, you know what I mean? Who cares how old the car is, So that's really, to me, I think my latest my latest realization of this is I don't think there really is a timestamp on it, like I maybe thought there was before. I think as long as you can physically do it and and can physically give your all onto this and care about it, then I don't know if there is an age.
When the band recorded 012, Revolution and Just Listening, famously, we were broken up, but we wanted to honor our contract to Relapse Records, right? So you weren't talking. How does it work? Like, was everything recorded separately? Was it tense during recording? Did things get better at all? Like, what was some of that like?
Yeah. So I think largely those stories have been exaggerated, and I just think my recollection is that it was definitely tense writing it, but like we still wrote it. I mean,
Yeah.
that record's nothing to sniff at. I mean, it's a good record. So like,
Oh yeah.
it wasn't. Yeah, no, we wrote the record. We got to end. It was just different. I think it was more. I think it definitely the tension was more on with my side. Everybody more towards me. But like I think that my recollection is that we still really gave a shit about it, but and we still wrote it in that rehearsal spot that the Get Kids were let us borrow over in the loft overlooking Kansas City, and and we went in and we recorded it, and it was just like any other record, but it wasn't like, um, it just wasn't like no one was looking towards the future. Hey, we can't wait to do this. It was just kind of like, hey, this is it. It's kind of like this. That was the feat, and that was the end of it. So, I just, as I think about it and kind of chat with the guys about it, more, it's like, hey, because I brought this up, because I had questions about this before and stuff, and they're like, yeah, I mean, it was tense, but it wasn't individual, and like, nobody was not talking to each other or anything like that. It's just how it was just probably just more tense, and just this kind of like probably more of a somber mood that, there's not excitement for a tour to support it. There's not excitement for anything. I do remember not no one even really caring about the art or the lyrics or anything. You know what I mean? It was just kind of largely like, yeah, whatever, just do whatever you want. So, um, to me, that's was the biggest difference. But as far as like the actual writing of it, I think that's just part of the lore of the band that maybe has a root in truth, but maybe isn't exactly true, in its entirety.
Ox. Now, this is another fantastic record, and you said you kind of consider this the starting point of the band. What had changed? What had changed for you lyrically? Like, how did you approach it differently from before?
Well, yeah, definitely the start of the band lyrically. I mean, obviously the music, when it goes, I wouldn't say that about the music as a band, but just for me lyrically, that's where my modern era started. But to me, like the lyrics on that to me was just the ability to better communicate what I'm trying to convey. And I am just still hopelessly in love with the way that Jess blended Americana and all the Western stuff with it. It's just, I love it. So, that is not the future trajectory of this band. That was definitely the Ox era of all of that stuff. But I'm just hopelessly romantic about it. So much so that if I found somebody to do a heavy Western band with me, I would figure out how to make it happen. So it's just, it fits. It's cool. It's just feels great. I love singing those songs. Wild Ox Moan is so bizarre and so weird. How we took a classic song and we gave it new meaning and added onto it. And it's just fucking weird. But somehow it just fits. So I think sonically is the most interesting thing we did. But yeah, I mean, it just, that one, that one is definitely the one that like, I know everybody goes to Functioning and 0 and 2 and stuff, but yeah, it's for me, it's definitely Ox. I totally forgot the question. You're gonna have to. I got started rambling. I had to talk about the Western, and I got trailed off.
It's such a good mix. And look, when I was young, I would become pretty disillusioned sometimes with bands that I loved. Like if it was a heavier band and they went in a more rock direction, I wouldn't like it. Or if there was some kind of style change, I wouldn't like it. Not all the time, but sometimes. But Coalesce, for whatever reason, I was always on board with whatever you did. Like when we went from Functioning to the Led Zeppelin cover record and then to 012. Like I remember hearing 012 for the first time, and that first song where it kicks into the like Zeppelin kind of riff in the chorus.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay. But I liked it because the Zeppelin record prepped me for that. And I like to say this to people on the show and they laugh at me, but Coalesce actually got me into Led Zeppelin.
Oh, that's quite a statement.
I know, because I don't listen to any classic rock. I rebelled against it as I did many things when I was young. My parents never really like sat down with me and said like, oh, listen to the Beatles, listen to this, listen to. So I didn't have that experience. And then I remember in 8th grade, I went to a pool party and everyone's like, let's listen to the Doors. Let's listen to the Beatles. And I was like, what the fuck is wrong with all of you? Like, where am I? So I just rebelled against it,
I was thinking about this the other day. The first time I ever even noticed music was when I was very, very young in Oklahoma, down in Norman. And our neighbors, neighborhood kids were hanging out in the room and they had a radio on and whatever, right? To me, it was just white noise. It wasn't until Twisted Sister's We're Not Gonna Take It came on that I was like, oh, what is this? What are we listening to? And then, and to me, I think it was just the rebellion in the song, right? It's like, it's so
Yeah.
strong, and I was really little. And so, it's like, I'm the same way. My parents didn't, my dad like studied music. I didn't know that until he died. My mom had this incredible record collection. She didn't have a way to play it, and so like it was skateboarding videos that taught me music, but the first hint of like me being like, oh, I recognize music was that. And then I think the total eclipse of the heart, right?
Yeah. The earliest I can remember is my mom would drive us back and forth, I think to pick my dad up from work. Or I don't know. I just remember these long drives, and she would have Bob Seger on Night
Oh
Moves.
yeah, that's a good one though.
That is a jam. I
Yeah,
still
it's
go
great.
back and listen to that and think of those drives.
Yeah, there's this one little scene in the Marvel movies where Captain America has that little book, and the Falcon is like, you need to look up this record from here, and he writes it down. It's like I kind of feel like that sometimes. You know what I mean? It's like I didn't pay attention to any of this stuff. You know what I mean? I need someone to tell me like what to look out for. And a lot of this old music, that I really missed out on. I've really discovered through just learning bass and just understanding like what an incredible bass line is and what those bands are, and so on, and there's just so much amazing stuff out there, but it's like impossible for me to like digest it, or collect it or any of that stuff, but when I do get those gems, it's like, man, do I appreciate them.
Oh, yeah. But yeah, going back to Ox, again, I've just always been on board with everything Coalesce did differently, and that Americana / hardcore mix was brilliant. I don't think anyone has ever done that, and that is, it was just a really good fit. I think that's the triumph and tragedy of Coalesce. It's like Jess is such a genius. Everybody is so good. Everybody is so unique. Everybody is so locked in. There's no replacing anyone. It's like it has to be these core people or not.
Yeah, well, I definitely learned that in '02, right? So, but yeah, no, I mean, it's definitely true. I mean, it's a very true statement. So, yeah, I can't
Yeah.
disagree. I
Sean,
learned my
do you
lesson.
agree that you're the best?
No, I agree that Jess and Nate are not replaceable. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. No, I just want to express some appreciation there. I realize it's probably weird to hear.
Well, yeah, it is. It is weird because, like I said, it's like you're talking to the guy who's, I've seen I've seen the empty shows and the failed tours and the records that didn't sell. You know what I mean? So it is cool to be like, okay, well, people did notice it and pay attention to it. So it is cool, but like, but yeah, compliments are hard, right? To take.
I used to get so fucked up from compliments. I still do that, but I used to have like a severe physical reaction where people would think something was wrong. So I trained myself to just say thank you and move on. And I do that online and I do it in person. I just say thank you and then drop it.
Yeah, well, that's a good lesson. That's a good lesson I learned tonight. I appreciate it. Thank you.
There we go. And now we move on. No, you must have seen the big reaction to people being happy about you coming back and the Furnace Fest announcement and all that. That's got to feel good, right?
Yeah. I'm bad with compliments and I'm bad with criticism too. So, like, I think that largely one of the things I promised myself going into this is like, I'm doing this for myself. And I just want to have a good time. And like, there's always someone to tell me that I'm not good enough, or, or someone else is better, or whatever. Right. Especially with the internet and it being so easy and anonymously and all that. So I think largely I kind of stay away from all of it a little bit, and Nellis handles the social stuff, and then I just handle the booking and the label and stuff. So like, to me, that's just like probably the best way to do it. You know what I mean? I was reading this interesting article that Max Cavalera would read terrible terrible reviews or online shit posts about Sepultura to get them angry and perform on stage. And like, man, that sounds like torture. So to me, I feel like largely it's like we're going to do this whether anyone likes it or not, and as long as we can, and it's going to happen. And how people react to it positively or negatively, that's going to happen too. And and I'm not super interested in reveling in anything or beating myself up either. I want people who want to see the show see the show, see a real show.
I'm so happy that you're playing shows outside of Furnace Fest too, because I didn't want to go to Furnace Fest again. Nothing against the fest. I'm old. I'm tired. I don't think I can handle 3 or 4 days of music anymore. Whatever it is.
Yeah. I'm not a huge fest fan myself, but I've been hearing people have been talking to me about Furnace Fests as far as back as a decade ago.
Yeah.
So
It's a great fest.
Yeah.
It's going to be a good time for you guys.
Yeah. It sounds exciting. So, yeah, but I think generally, I think the only fests I really remember that I had good times at were like the early Krazy Fests or the Matt Pike used to book these really rad I can't remember what it's called. It's like they're kind of like in Boston, like Boston Metal something fest. And so those were like super dope. And so I just yeah, I'm a small stage club guy. Like that's how I like to see things. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's how I digest music and that's how I like to do music. But I think that our announcement for that was fuck it, we'll do it. And that's as much thought was put into it. So that was actually our attitude towards it. You know what I mean? There was no strategy to it whatsoever. It's like, fuck it, we'll do it. It sounds fun. But yeah. So like to me, I think I'm really, really looking forward to club shows too. Playing 500 cap and smaller shows. And to me, that's a real Coalesce show. You know what I mean? It's like it's just the vibe and the energy is what I love, and going back to that Cave-In show I was talking about earlier, it's like to me that was a perfect moment, and so those perfect moments I've only experienced in clubs, but who's to say I couldn't experience that at a fest too? I just haven't yet. So it'll be interesting to see. Oh, Detroit Fest is the other one. Those things were insane, but they were just like they were under one roof, so it was kind of like just a show with a gajillion bands, more so than a fest.
You just reminded me, you did vocals for Dillinger Escape Plan at Krazy Fest 02, was it?
Actually, it was like right before 9/11. That's how long ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's how long ago it was. So, so that was 01, right? So
Yeah,
we did
yeah.
that. We did the Krazy Fest, and that was insane. They had their buddy breathing fire on stage, and man, it was quite a show, dude. So there was that, and then there was supposed to be I was supposed to do a second show on September 12th of 2001 at the it was in New York City. I can't remember what it was. It's the College CMJ, or is it CMJ? Is that what it was called back then? I think it was called CMJ, College Music Journal, and they were going to do another set, and I was just going to pop out since I was already rehearsed and there was no wind up. I was just going to do the thing for him, but then 9/11 happened, and then they canceled the CMJ, and so that was a lot. It was a lot of work. It was an incredible amount of work.
Did they ever offer you to join, or did you think that, like, in the back of your mind, maybe you wanted to?
No, never. No, they were very clear that they didn't want me to join, and I was very clear I didn't want to join either. This was during the time that they had that MySpace contest, and they were trying out vocal submissions.
Right.
Or it was on MySpace, right? I think that's what I said. So, and that was when that's where they found Greg, and so
I think that was pre-MySpace, actually. So they think they were doing it email through their website. I don't know. I remember seeing it, but yeah, it was like
I think you're right.
Pre-social media, I think.
You just jogged a memory of them having cassette tapes in the van. It's totally possible that people were mailing cassettes and they
right,
because they put some sort of song. I think it was 43% 50% burnt.
Yeah,
And
they put a vocalless version up, and I
yeah.
remember downloading it, and I was going to try to like submit a demo, but I just never did.
Yeah. So that's where they found Greg, and they were certainly looking for a singer that was, that had way more range. They already had in mind that they were going to do singing and all the rad shit that they ended up doing with Greg. So, so like that, I think that's what they were looking for. And I wasn't looking for a band. I wasn't looking to join them either.
Yeah, it was just those gigs.
Yeah, I was just going to pop in and then I was going to go back to my life.
Did you ever think of starting a new band? Because you had the desire, right? Just not the right people or the right situations sometimes.
Yeah, so I tried to do some stuff with the Clark brothers, like through the mail, from Training for Utopia and Demon Hunter. And they wrote like a demo, or they did like a couple demo songs. But that long distance stuff, it wasn't real. You know what I mean? It's too hard.
It is.
Yeah, it's just too hard. So, I mean, long distance relationships are hard. Imagine doing a band like that. It's like you really just need to be in a room and knock it out. So
I've done the long distance band thing, and it's too hard for me.
yeah. Or you miss opportunities for collaboration. You know what I
Right.
mean? And and I know I've run into that before, to where something comes off and maybe, I don't know the right word, but maybe like missed opportunities in a song, and then the song just isn't really rad. So
Right.
so I've done that, but I just really, I think that once I got I got my belly full in O2. And so I think that when after that, I didn't even really look for anyone to do anything after that. I wasn't interested, and to me, I felt like maybe Coalesce would do something again, maybe I'd do it, but like I didn't really think of myself as a vocalist, you know what I mean, or somebody who had something to share. But it just really wasn't until 2 years ago that and I did like guest spots. I did some stuff for the Used. I did some stuff for Every Time I Die. I did some stuff for Norma Jean, and I might be missing some. But like and that was fun. You know what I mean? It was just kind of like I got to do this thing, and it was no big deal. But it really wasn't until two or maybe 3 years ago that me and my buddy Josh Barber, I was he's who I went to record those stints, and he's an engineer and he's a music writer and he's really talented, and we just got along and I just liked him, so I would just keep in contact with him and stuff. And every once in a while he'd be like, we should do a band, and I would just laugh and I'd leave. And so um I don't know what happened, but I think he really pressed me real hard. Finally, he's like, "Hey, I really want to do something with you. Can I produce something for you?" And this was really coming off of like a real bad stretch of deaths in my circle. I just lost like 5 people, and so you know, I it was the first time that I think I actually pursued it and took it seriously. And I was like, no, 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 we're going to do something. So, we started talking about it, and then we're like, we should do this. And then we even had Nate Ellis in the band at first, and we're just like, try it out. But it didn't work out because, it wasn't kind of the thing that Nate wanted to write. And he was busy with casket lottery. And then, we didn't talk and all that stuff. And then he would talk about it again, call me, you know what I mean? I'm not a dreamer. I'm just a doer. Like, to me, it's like, I don't ever want to dream about something. Like, I don't ever want to I guess an anecdote I think of all the time is when we're growing up, there are always those kids who would make paper stickers of their skateboard brand that didn't exist. And they would just give it to all their friends, and they're like, "Yeah, it's my brand." It's like, it's a fucking sticker. It's like, it's not real. And so like, I think bands can be like that too. One day we'll do a band, or one day we'll do this. And, I had a particularly bad day, and I just told him, I said, "Josh, I don't want to fucking hear about this band anymore. Like, you do something, or don't talk to me about it ever again. I don't want to hear it." And he goes, okay. He hung up, and then he called me, I think 2 weeks later from, he was in the Pacific Northwest. I believe it was Oregon. I keep saying it was Spokane, but it wasn't. He corrected me. He was in Oregon somewhere, and he started sending me demos, and I was just like, oh shit, this is what I want to do. And so then we just started putting together music. But even then, the intention of this new thing that I've been working on for the past several years, um, you know, we didn't intend it for it to come out. It really was just for us. We had no intention of releasing it. We were just going to write these songs, and to me, it was important that I had complete freedom from anxiety of judgment to write, what I was dealing with. And so, um, yeah, that, and it's just kind of snowballed in all sorts of different ways. And we've softened on that, obviously, because it's coming out. But that, to me, what made that happen is that I had a partner that was like-minded, that was in the vicinity, and was, who was really similar to me in how he gets things done. RL, the guy I work with, he knows Josh, and he goes, oh yeah, I know Josh. He has one speed, it's go. And so that is me too. So like
Yeah.
so like we just mesh, really good, you know what I mean? And we also aren't afraid to tell each other no, and we aren't afraid to tell each other we don't like something that they did, and we don't take it personally, and you know what I mean? And our band is also 2 people. So that helps things too, to where there's not 7 people that we have to run things by, right? It's just us. We set it up largely like how Nine Inch Nails is, does our band, to where it's like there's two folks in the band, and then we hire our friends, you know what I mean, and they contribute in interesting and totally rad ways, you know what I mean. But that's like they're not like, they don't have the burden of being a band member and all that. They get paid first and all that other sort of stuff.
Nice. So there will be a new band announcement at some point?
Yeah. So we're looking at a release next year, and then it's called Idle Heirs, and we've put together 8 songs, and it's an hour-long record, and it's just I mean, it's not Coalesce in any way, shape, or form, but there's certainly aspects of of the voice that I contribute on there, and it's just has been an incredible labor of love, that I didn't think could exist, really, honestly. So the fact that it exists is enough for me. But our friends over at Relapse, I think they just had an inkling of what was going on, of what we're doing. And they pressed us to listen to it. And, I love Drew over at Relapse. So I was like, yeah, sure. This is the song, I didn't think twice about it. And he was like, what the fuck are you doing? Why is this not coming out? Like, can we work together? So, um, that was kind of unexpected too. Because it's just, I mean, like I said, it's like the way we went into this was really different. And it was just meant to be for ourselves, you know what I mean? So putting together art and all this stuff for something that was never meant to have art, is just, has been an interesting experience. But I think it's good, you know what I mean? And it's cool to see my wife kind of fangirl over it. You know what I mean? It's just like, she knows Coalesce, I met her at a Coalesce show, but like, she knows the songs, she knows all that, but I don't catch her secretly listening to Coalesce songs like she does this. So it's just, so I'm like, well, this is pretty interesting, so the response that we've gotten so far. So yeah, it's going to be a lot. There's a lot happening next year for sure for me.
Wow. That's exciting. I can't wait to hear that. What's the vibe? Is it heavier, lighter, somewhere in between?
I mean, Cult of Luna was our North Star. So, and we really, I mean, we even flew out to record at Ocean Sound in Norway to just.
That's what I was going to ask you, was the trip to Norway recording for this new band.
Yes. Yeah. So, and again, a lot of our conversations start like this. Hey, I know this is crazy, but hear me out. What if we just did this super insane thing, because we have no idea if we'll ever get to be creative in this way again. Right. And so we just did, and so we just did. We just pulled out the credit cards and made it happen. You know what I mean? Because it wasn't a business decision; it was an emotional decision. So, um, it's just to me, it's just, I mean, just anywhere you can grab influence, or you can grab any kind of inspiration from your surroundings and such. It's just absolutely, I just think it's so important to the band, and we've always kind of recorded at home, and we went to work, and then we record and go to work and record. And the thing in Norway was so different because there was such an incredible freedom, um, and release of anxiety and all these other things that go with being at home, that like we were able to get things that I don't think we could have done at home, And so to me, when I talk to the guys in Coalesce, is like, Ed's retired now. Like we've always only produced with Ed Rose. And Ed Rose won't come back for a new record, right? So like we have to figure out what we're going to do. And I think that my biggest impression on the guys is like we have to get out of town. Like to me, that's like the most important thing. Whether we go, east, west, I don't, whatever. You know what I mean? But we should really, sequester ourselves. It makes a difference.
So it sounds like there is a future for Coalesce.
Yeah, dude, there's more shows coming, and we're back at it and until we're not.
Now that's exciting. I'll never forget when I had Nathan Ellis on the show, I asked about the potential of a Coalesce reunion or any new music or anything. This was like 4 years ago, 3-4 years ago. And he said, don't count on it.
Yeah.
And I was disappointed, but I was like, things always change. I'll hold on to this glimmer of hope.
And it was that way, like the December 1st, that was still the answer. And then December 26th, it wasn't. So yeah, you're right. It goes, I always say this, it's like, if the Pixies could get back together, anybody can get back together. You know what I mean? It's like, there's a way, so, but yeah, it really, in life circumstances, they're all different. It's like everything has to happen like perfectly at the right time. And I feel like maybe some of this stuff would never even happen if the pandemic didn't throw such a monkey wrench into everyone's lives. You know what I mean? The way that, people think coming out of the pandemic is totally different. You know what I mean? Myself included. It's like people reevaluated what was important to them, and so we're no different, so like I think that just the world had, like, all the pieces had to move into alignment, and I'm glad they did.
Me too. How did things change for you after the pandemic? Like, how did you see things differently? For me, I don't know. I appreciate music a lot more. This podcast became weekly during the pandemic, so that sort of changed the course of my life in a lot of ways, and and that indirectly started a new band for me. What about for you? How did things change for you?
So for me, I went through. We went through a really terrible situation with one of our partners at work, where there's three of us. He just lost his mind. We don't know what's wrong with him. But he just really kind of beat us up, you know what I mean? And that set the stage for me exiting. And so I think that for me, what I've really taken away from the pandemic is that people don't get to waste my time anymore. It's like, I used to, I've generally been very, access to me has been easy. You just email me, even though I'm surprised to hear that I never emailed you back about this podcast before. But I've just been very, accessible. And, or the businesses that I get involved with and stuff. And so, yeah, I mean, if you're wasting my time, I'm out, So I don't think that necessarily was how I was before the pandemic. I think I would stick with something, see it as failure, and then just, stay with it until like it just falls apart. Whereas now I'm not like that. So I I I generally, to me, the bigger thing that changed my life was how much death has kind of entered my orbit. And not only do people not get to waste my time, but like I'm not wasting my time either. So for me, it's like I need to be out doing something, and I need as many experiences as possible. And I will leave notes for my kids, and they know who I am, and that to me is enough. You know what I mean? Whereas before, I think largely I would stay home, you know what I mean, and be planted and be rooted and stuff. But I'm not feeling that anymore.
I love that. I love that. How old are your kids?
Oh God, they're adults. They're not really kids, but yeah, 20. It's like 20, mid 20s to 17 to just turned 15. So,
Ah,
so yeah, so I've got one baby still. I've got one teen boy who's entering, as a senior and entering the job market. And then I've got two daughters that work in music merchandising too. So, in different fields. And so, yeah, it's a lot.
yeah, yeah. You sound like you've got your hands full.
Yeah. 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 It's not changing any day soon, but yeah, no, you're right.
That's a good thing, though. I can't have any downtime as much as I think I want it. I have like a sickness. I need to be doing something every minute of every day.
Well, I had an experience where I got in a motorcycle accident, and I had complete AC separation on my right shoulder. And I had to sit in a chair with a sling. I was in so much pain for 6 weeks. Couldn't type. It was terrible. It was like, actually, it was during the pandemic that this happened. Thank God there was no work going on. All I could do is sit around and worry about going out of business because the local government shut us down. Kansas had a stay at home where nobody could go into work. And so, um, the one thing that I learned from that is that I fell apart, like just physically fell apart, and I learned that from my dad too in his final year. Some days I would go pick him up, and he looked gray and he was dead. And he was just like, take me out to eat, and he'd have a cane and a walker. And then I would go back the next week, and he's all flush and pink and putting on his fancy cowboy boots. And he's like, all right, like, let's go, boy. And I'm like, what is the difference? Like, what happened to you? You were dead last week. Today you look great. And he's like, oh, they're making me walk 2 miles a day. And I'm like,
Wow.
they're making a move. So like, to me, it's like, and like I said, my first inclination is to rest and fall apart, but like also, move. So it's just got to get that momentum going for me.
Was your father one of those deaths that you described, that the one of the five?
Yeah. Yeah. His was the hardest. And then our good pal, Corey Lawrence, was shortly after. He died in a freak accident, skating a vert ramp, actually. And then Janet Matthews, and then, who was a dear family friend and was really instrumental in getting our boys out there and seeing the outdoors and stuff. And she just, I mean, dude, she was going to outlive us all. I mean, she was a force of nature, and she just had a heart attack one morning, and gone. And then, yeah. And then Ralph, and then, it just kept going. And so, it's, that, to me, that part of life is getting more normal, and I don't like it. But I was talking to Grandma Betty, and she's in her 90s, and she's like, Sean, get your black suit and get it in your closet. And you just be prepared. This is how it works. It's like we used to go to weddings, then we went to funerals, and then now, that's how it works. So it's hard getting used to, but I got a crash course in it. And I don't especially like it, but but it definitely sparked a lot of self-reflection and the things that I found important about my dad and after he passed, and making sure that I make an effort that I have those conversations or those things at the ready for my kids to access when I'm gone. And even though I love podcasts, and I'm talking about bands and I'm talking about all this cool shit that's going on, but like largely my motivation for interviews and podcasts especially is some kind of record for the kids to hear my voice at a later date.
Yeah, it's important, and that's why I do this, because I got involved in recovery a number of years ago, and they always you always hear people say, "Yeah, get yourself a black suit, you're going to need it." But
Mhm.
yeah, I've seen a lot of people die as a result of addiction since I got involved. Even a few people that have been on this show, and I'm so happy that I have a record of a long conversation with them, because they
Yeah.
were in bands that were not hugely known, so it's there if anyone wants to go back and if anybody wants to listen to it.
Well, and it can't be understated how important that is, like after they pass. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So like things that I would never find important, I cherish now. And sometimes it's as simple as oh, I have 3 of his handkerchiefs in a Ziploc bag, and it's they're clean, but like he would put them in his pocket, and they still smell like him, and so it's just like little things like that like when I was cleaning out his house I probably would have just thrown away, you know what I mean, but I just thought, it's like, maybe that's important, I don't know, but I think that you're so emotional when you're going through those things that you really, I mean, you're just on autopilot anyways, you know what I mean? And I can name a million things I regret that I threw away when we cleaned his house out, or the things that I missed, but the stuff that I did keep is like incredibly important to us. And so I think that's largely how we've been dealing with that loss, is that um we now incorporate the people that we lose in our home somehow, whether that's Ralph's fishing tackle box as part of, on our stoop, or if that's, my dad's stuff, whatever it is. And even with Corey, we, Dan Askey from Second Nature and I, and another skate shop, we put an incredible amount of fundraising and work into creating a Vert Ramp memorial for him, and they've been hosting pro demos, and we've got all sorts of kids skateboarding, with public access to vert ramps, which has been traditionally difficult, so um, yeah, I mean, it's like all those things just affect you in like all these different ways, it's like I hate to think that it takes someone dying to make these things happen, but it takes someone dying to make these things happen, and that's just the truth of it, in our life. So um, yeah, I wish it wasn't that way, but like that's really largely what I guess I'm getting at on these other things, is like I'm not wasting any time. It's like it's like I know I'm going to be the dude that just like falls over from a heart attack, no notice, right? It's like I want as many European tours before then, you know what I mean? I want as many records before then. So and there's lots of other things I could do, but when I went through that whole pandemic and all this stuff, it really, what I learned is like what truly made me happy was music. I don't think of myself as a musical person, even though I try, to learn and play bass, proficiently, but like um that, you know, and that's what I came to. And I think that that really is to the credit of my wife Chayla, who identified it, and she said, um, she's like, "No, you need to do music again. That's when you. It's the only time I've ever seen you at your happiest." And like I didn't even recognize that about myself. So that's what it was. So I'm lucky to be able to identify that and act on it, I guess.
Absolutely. Let's recap here. Now, we want people to see Coalesce at Furnace Fest for sure, right?
Yeah. I don't know how much it is to get in there, but if you're going for all those bands and that's your thing, it sounds like we're closing out the they call it the shed on Friday night.
Yes.
And then yeah, that's my understanding.
All right. So everyone at Furnace Fest, make sure you're there because this is a once in a lifetime event. And oh yeah, this is the last Furnace Fest too. So this is it. This is it.
This is it for them, and until I guess they bring it back in 5 years or reinvent it or whatever. I don't know much about it. And it's crazy too because the studio that me and Josh write and do some recording is actually the same building as Plug Your Holes. So the guy who sponsors Furnace, like the main sponsor for Furnace Fest, it's like we're in the belly of his building. It's like such
really?
Yeah, isn't that bizarre? So yeah, it's just it's all goes hand in hand.
Whoa. Yeah. And Coalesce is going to be on select dates. I saw New York and Philadelphia. Anything else in the works?
We'll definitely be doing something in January out west, and then I mean, yeah, I don't have anything that definitive I can announce, but like this is just the start of the next run. It's coming.
Oh, I'm so excited. I love it. And your new band that we can keep an eye out for next year. What was it called again?
Idle Heirs.
All right. I'm looking forward to that too. And Sean, Coalesce is one of the first bands I got into when I discovered this music in 98. And it's been one of my absolute favorites all these years. Never slowed down on loving the band. And I'm so happy you're back. So I just want to say thank you so much for coming on the show.
Hey, thank you. I really appreciate it, man.
And there you have it, Sean Ingram. Very, very, very happy to have Sean on the show. It's a conversation I've been waiting a long time to have because Coalesce is one of my favorite, maybe my favorite heavy band of all time. I know I've said that about Ink and Dagger in the past, but Ink and Dagger is almost in their own category. It's more avant-garde, it's more genre blending, but I guess Coalesce is too. All right, let's just say one of my absolute favorite heavy bands of all time, Coalesce. So really great to have Sean on the show and to have the conversation that we did. Hearing all about the band from his perspective, hearing about all the work that the band is putting in for these upcoming gigs and all of the work Sean has put in to get his voice back to where he wants it to be. His new band that he was talking about, that sounds really interesting. I can't wait to hear that. And the part towards the end, hearing Sean talk about the 5 deaths that he experienced in a short period of time, one of those being his dad. And, just how he was talking about holding on to mementos from his dad, holding on to the handkerchiefs and holding on to his friend's tackle box, and they keep that on the porch. And, how Sean wasn't going to waste any more time and just wanted to live life to the fullest. Man, that whole section at the end, I didn't fully grasp it while I was actually talking to Sean, but when I went back and edited the episode and listened to that again, that hit me really hard, and I thought that was a really special part of the conversation. And I keep thinking about when he said, he would visit his dad at the nursing home, and sometimes his dad would look like he was on his way out, and then sometimes he would look healthy and pink and back to normal, and he'd be like, all right, where are we going? And apparently the nurses made him walk 2 miles some days, and that would bring him back, give him new life. And it's just wild how a little bit of effort can make such a difference physically, right? It was there was just so many good nuggets in there in that conversation, and to me it sounds like Coalesce is back, fully back. The way Sean described it, it sounds like they will continue to play shows. It sounds like they'll even continue to write music, and I really hope that's the case because I love the band. I saw they were reissuing those records on Relapse, and I went and bought all of them without even thinking about it. They're one of a kind, and I can't wait to see them. By the way, an editorial correction. When I was telling that story about how people got mad at Harvest of Maturity, right? And they were on tour and some guys confronted them and they were with 108 and Strife. It wasn't 108 and Strife. It was 108 and Bloodlet. Stacy Hilt told that story in episode 59 of this podcast. So if you want more of the Coalesce story, Nathan Ellis was on episode 33 and Stacy Hilt was on episode 59. So you can go back and hear even more great stories about Coalesce over the years. Yeah, Coalesce is one of the first bands I got into when I discovered this music. My friends were all way into them and I got way into them. Functioning on Impatience had just come out. I remember in the same day I bought Functioning on Impatience by Coalesce and Transitions by Harvest. Those two CDs at Disc Connection in Bensalem, PA. Remember that store? They would have good stuff there. Coalesce made an impact on me early on. 002 A Safe Place was a record I listened to a ton. Functioning was a record I listened to a ton. I even went on eBay and got an old copy of 002 on CD, which I think I still have. And then I saw them for the first time at a Relapse Records showcase in 1998. I think it was at the Trocadero in Philadelphia, or the TLA. I always get those two mixed up. I forget which one it was at. But Coalesce played, the Dillinger Escape Plan played. This was like my second big hardcore show I ever went to. And the first one I went to, which I've talked about on the show, it was Krazy. Krazy, no barrier, scared for my life, and I was afraid this second show was going to be the same thing. But it was at a bigger club with a higher stage and a barrier, so it was more tame. And I still remember Coalesce. You know, remember Sean used one of those like old 50s style microphones back in the day? He had that, and I remember them playing You Can't Kill Us All. And I remember the mic was cutting out, but Sean's voice still carried through the entire venue. And it's still an image, a sound that's burned in my mind. I saw them again when they reunited for Ox and did that tour. But as was the case at the time, I left in the middle of their show to go and buy drugs somewhere in Philadelphia. And that's what I used to do a lot back then. But listen, I will not be doing that when they play Brooklyn this October with Caven. I cannot wait for that show. That is, I'm going to go nuts. I'm going to go nuts. I can't wait to see Coalesce again. I can't wait to see Caven again. It's going to be awesome. So there you go. We did it. Sean Ingram. Thank you so much, Sean, for coming on the show. And very happy to have you and Coalesce back. So let's check in. How are we doing? I'm good. I'm getting over being sick again. So check this. Last weekend, I had tickets for 2 different shows. A long time ago, I bought tickets for the Dillinger Escape Plan Coalesce Boys Dead Guy show. That was night 2 of the 3-night run here in New York City. And then not realizing it, I bought tickets for another show Saturday night. All these bands played one show. The Armed, King Woman, Chat Pile, Cloakroom, Regana, and Couch Slut. All on one show. And I was like, oh man, I got to go to the Dillinger show. I mean, Dillinger Escape Plan with Dimitri, Calculating Infinity, one of my favorite records of all time. That was one of my favorite bands that got me into this music. Their live show sold me on the music. I got to go to Dillinger. I have to. But as it turns out, I didn't go to any show because I was sick. I was like, let me get dressed, let me get a shower, let me eat dinner, let me see how I feel, let me take some sinus medication. I did all of that. And I still felt absolutely horrible. So I'm like, let me listen to my body here. I'm not going to push it. I'm not going to go to the show. And I was really disappointed because, I mean, Dead Guy, Coalesce Boys, and Dillinger Escape Plan all on one show. That's an insane lineup. I was so excited to go to that. I even bought VIP balcony tickets so I could watch the show in peace and not have someone stand 1 centimeter in front of my face and then people standing behind me so that I can't move back. But the person in front of me could move in front of me if they want. But instead, they stand 1 cent. All right, you get the idea. You get the idea. So I had VIP balcony tickets. I didn't go. I was sick, and I'm really sad about that. But I hope Dillinger plays a few more shows with this lineup somewhere around here because I want to see it. And other than that, I'm just getting ready for my shows later this summer. Memory Entry, our band, will be performing one show opening for This Day Forward at Bowery Ballroom on August 25th. And we may be playing another one in July. So I'm getting ready, practicing, working on vocals, doing all that stuff. And I'm excited for everyone to hear that band. And that's about it. That's pretty much everything that's going on. It's been quiet around here. It's been hot. I am not a summer person, but I'm not completely miserable right now either. So I'll take it. I hope I just hope I don't feel as bad this summer as I did last summer. But everything's good, feeling good. Plenty of great episodes and guests coming up with this podcast. So listen, we still need Apple Podcast reviews. We just about closed the gap on Spotify. We're at 291. We're going to hit 300 in no time, but we've got a long way to go for Apple Podcast reviews. We have 223 currently. We need 77 more. So if you listen to this show and you have an iPhone, open up the podcast app on your iPhone, search the new scene, scroll down, hit the 5-star button. You can do that too. If you've rated on Spotify, you can still rate on Apple Podcasts if you haven't done it yet. So do it. I mean, why not? We've got a new review here from Thomas94310. Thomas says, great to smoke to. 5 stars. Really glad I found this. They go by fast because the artists get really confidential. Thank you, Thomas, for the review. Thank you, everyone who has been submitting reviews. Keep them coming. We will close the gap on these Apple Podcast reviews. All right, so we are going to end the show with a song I go back to often. It's from a band called Input Output. If you search them on Spotify or anywhere else, it's just I/O. They put out a great LP in 2017 called Anyone, Anywhere. I'm going to close with my favorite song from that record, which is called To Everyone I Could Have Loved and All the Places We Could Have Called Home. I'm back next week, and I'll see you then.